facilities infrastructure here at Inter Pipeline. I am pleased to welcome all of you to our Cochrane extraction plant. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda nations of Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney. We also acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We are honored to host this important announcement and proud to showcase the work our teams do every day to advance the responsible energy infrastructure across Canada. This facility reflects our commitment to innovation, safety, and sustainability, values that are at the core of how we operate and grow our business. Thank you to our employees, partners, and distinguished guests for joining us. A special thank you to the Honourable Tim Hodgson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, the team at the Natural Resource Canada, and to the team at Entropy for their support in this important carbon sequestration project. I'd also like to recognize the men and women who work here at the Cochrane extraction plant, committed to the safe extraction and processing of vital natural gas liquids, products that Canadian families and businesses use across this nation and beyond every day. I am excited to announce the Cochrane extraction plant will also be home to the Bow Valley Carbon, a CO2 sequestration facility. This plant is expected to ultimately be the initial beneficiary of the Bow Valley Carbon Hub, but more from that from our CEO in a moment. For now, please join me in welcoming the Honourable Tim Hodgson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. And I thank you for the land acknowledgement. I'd also like to thank Cory and his whole team here at the Cochrane extraction plant for their very warm welcome today. When I gave my first speech as a minister just 6 short weeks ago, it was here in Alberta, and I promised to be back soon. I'm keeping my promise. You know, as a new minister, I see how quickly our country is changing. And I want you to know I get inspired watching how Canadians are pulling together to face the challenges before us. This weekend we celebrated Canada Day, a time to reflect on our history, but also a time to be proud of how we are writing our future with courage, foresight, and ambition. At a time of challenging global dynamics, our country is choosing to rise to the challenge. We are choosing to strengthen our economic sovereignty, assert our strategic independence, and build a future based on our values and ambitions. The time for following others is over. If other countries choose not to lead, Canada will. It's up to us to set the pace, to deal the cards, and pave the way for the solutions and innovations that will power our future. Whether in conventional and clean energy infrastructure, new technologies, or critical minerals, Canada is asserting its position in the world as a nation capable of stepping up to the challenge, taking responsibility to be masters of our own home, creating wealth for families from coast to coast to coast, supporting our allies with energy security and fighting climate change, and trading according to our own interests, not just based on who are our closest customers. We are moving rapidly to secure our rightful place as a conventional and clean energy superpower. Every barrel of responsibly produced Canadian oil and every ton of clean Canadian LNG can displace less clean, riskier energy elsewhere in the world. Our exports can help our allies break dependence on authoritarian regimes and help the world reduce our emissions. Canada will remain a reliable global supplier, not just today, but for decades to come. The real challenge is not whether we produce, but whether we can get the best products to market before someone else does. That means working with our energy sector to make investments that fight climate change, so we can reduce carbon emissions and bring the lowest cost, lowest risk, and lowest carbon products to domestic and international markets. Like we've just seen this week with the momentous opening of the LNG Canada Phase 1 facility in Kitimat. CCUS technologies will be an essential part of this, presenting tremendous opportunity for clean growth, long-term competitiveness, and Canadian leadership on a global scale. If we move quickly and strategically and leverage the best and brightest innovators and workers right here in Alberta, Canada can develop a world-class, multi-billion-dollar CCUS industry that allows us to responsibly grow our oil and gas production, that allows us to decarbonize other heavy industries like cement and steel, that allows us to support high-value jobs in a strong, sustainable economy, and allows us to match building the strongest economy in the G7 with the achievement of our climate objectives. For Canada to fully seize this opportunity, accelerated and coordinated action is needed across public and private sectors. Your new federal government is working to create the conditions to put private dollars to work for Canadians right here in Alberta, in the heart of the Canadian energy industry. This includes key measures like Canada's carbon capture, utilization, and storage investment tax credit, and investing over $300 million in research, development, and demonstration projects to prove commercial viability of CCUS technologies. Working closely with provinces is crucial, and I have to say Alberta is an MVP in our game plan. Across the province, Alberta isn't just keeping pace, it's accelerating our energy economy with concrete, local, and innovative solutions. And we want to see more of that, because a strong, sustainable Canada needs a strong, innovative Alberta. That's why I'm proud today to announce more than $21.5 million in federal funding for 5 innovative CCUS projects right here in Alberta. These 5 projects are developing cutting-edge CCUS technologies, from advancing CO2 storage sites and subsurface analysis technologies to cleaner diesel fuel engines. This will drive emission reductions and create new opportunities for Canada's innovation on the world stage. They will allow us to show our peers across the country and around the world that Canadian energy is the best energy in the world. Innovative, reliable, and responsible. First, we're investing $10 million right here in Bow Valley Carbon for the design and installation of a state-of-the-art CCUS system, which you just heard about. This system aims to capture 40,000 tons of CO2 emissions per year, equal to taking over 12,000 cars off the road every year. This is being done with the Inter-Pipeline Cochrane natural gas extraction plant, as you know. Then Enbridge's open access Wabamun Carbon Hub will receive $4 million to characterize deep saline reservoirs in central Alberta, an important storage and transportation solution for local carbon capture projects in that region. Another investment of $5 million will allow Enhance Energy to support hub development in new geological locations without access to the usual sandstone reservoirs. The OptiSice Solutions project will receive over $500,000 in funding to improve the cost effectiveness of existing technologies for measuring, monitoring, and verifying underground CO2 storage. And finally, more than $2 million will go to OCAM's technology to investigate and test modification of diesel engines, with the goal of developing economically viable capture processes for things like rail transport, marine shipping, and heavy-duty trucking. These are not just investments in Canadian companies. These are investments in the people of Alberta, in the long-term future of the oil and gas industry, and in the technologies of tomorrow. These are investments in a tide that will lift all Canadian boats. The world is changing. It's an uncertain place right now. But Canada has always been a country of builders, dreamers, and doers. So let's rise to that challenge. Not with hesitation, but with boldness. Let us turn this moment into an opportunity. We will lead. We will innovate, and we will power our country and the world the Canadian way. If that's your vision, and for those here today and across this great province, I think it is, your government is right here with you. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Minister Hodgson. I would now like to introduce Paul Hawksworth, President and Chief Executive Officer of Inter Pipeline.
Thank you, Cory. Thank you, Minister. It is my honor to welcome you all here today on behalf of both Inter Pipeline and the full Bow Valley Carbon Hub team, which includes our partners Entropy, a global leader in modular carbon capture and storage solutions. At Inter Pipeline, we are a premier provider of essential energy infrastructure and products that improve people's lives for decades to come. We are one of Canada's largest midstream companies with over 20 billion of asset value. Our extensive transportation pipeline network supports the movement of close to half of Canada's strategic oil production. Our state-of-the-art Heartland Petrochemical Complex produces valuable polypropylene, a recyclable polymer, enhancing the value of abundant Canadian natural gas resources right here in Alberta, Canada. We also operate one of Canada's largest natural gas liquid extraction facilities, producing valuable products such as ethane and propane, right here as an example with the Cochrane extraction plant. Now, Cochrane, the first phase, was built over 50 years ago through collaboration between government and industry, and it was based on a vision that Canada could do more with our natural resources, and has been expanded and modernized several times since then. Beginning under the leadership of then Premier Peter Lougheed, that vision took hold, becoming the facility that you know today, a critical piece of Alberta and Canadian infrastructure that ultimately delivers value locally, nationally, and now globally. It is a clear example of what strategic investment and long-term thinking can deliver. 50 years later, standing here today, those same principles are guiding us again. With the support of Natural Resource Canada, we are advancing the first phase of the Bow Valley Carbon Hub. This project is right here at Cochrane, and we will be capturing and sequestering CO2 from existing operations that will be safely and permanently stored 4 kilometers underground. There are many different opportunities right across the province, but one benefit here is this is one of the deepest formations that we'll be storing, providing an unprecedented level of safety combined with our innovative monitoring technologies. The Bow Valley Carbon Hub brings together Inter Pipeline's safety record, our project execution, and our deep commitment to our communities. It is further strengthened by Entropy's subsurface specialization and their operational experience that they bring to us. It is supported by the innovative work from across Canada's research industry. We look forward to working with our industry partners, Indigenous communities, and other stakeholders to build even stronger relationships that can drive our energy industry forward in Canada and shape carbon capture storage as it's deployed more rapidly across this province. Thank you again, Minister Hodgson, for joining us today. In your comments about Canada becoming an energy superpower, I've heard you say many times how critical it is that we continue to demonstrate our commitment globally and to our fellow Canadians that we are responsible industry. Bow Valley Carbon demonstrates that commitment. It is a tangible step forward, proving how government, communities, and industry can work together to deliver real, tangible, and measurable results. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I would now pass things over to the Minister's Director of Communication.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you to all of our speakers. We'll now move to the media conference portion of the announcement. We'll start with folks who are here in person, and then we'll move over to folks on the Zoom line. There is a microphone at the back just next to the cameras, which you can feel free to use to speak over the wind that we're experiencing. And before you give your question, if you could please just say your name and the outlet that you are reporting from, as well as if your question is directed to any specific speaker. We will start with one question and one follow-up. Heather, over to you.
Thank you. I'm Heather Urex-West with Global National. This question is for the Minister. Minister, I believe this is your third visit out west since becoming Minister. You've been speaking with the industry. Could you give us a sense of where things are sitting in terms of reaching consensus on the most, the Trudeau-era policies that seem to be of biggest concern? Bill C-69, the emissions cap, the tanker ban. Are you finding consensus at all on where things, a path forward on these key issues that the industry has so many concerns with?
Yeah, so what we talked about in Saskatoon, the Prime Minister and the Premiers, is we need to respond to our new reality, that the trading system that we have all enjoyed for the last 80 years doesn't exist anymore, and we need to retool our economy. And to do that, we need to get going as fast as we can. Some people have said to me, gosh, why are we going so fast? And my response is, ask the farmers who can't sell their canola, ask the fishermen who can't sell their catches, ask the auto workers who don't have jobs anymore, ask the steel plant workers who are seeing their plants shut down. We need to move quickly. What the Building One Canadian Economy Act does is allows us to move quickly. Under this framework, it allows us to do all the things we needed to do in one centralized place under one set of timelines, and to take those learnings to go back and to deal with the other acts over time. So the goal is to focus through the Major Projects Office on projects of national interest, and to take those learnings to deal with the other issues. And we have committed to do that quickly.
My follow-up would be, do you think you'll be able to attract private investment dollars with these three acts as they stand now, or will changes need to be made before more investment dollars come in?
We're gonna focus on the projects of national interest right away. There's a lot of interest in those projects, and we will learn from that and move quickly to do what we need to do. What the Prime Minister has said is he's focused on results. We'll figure out how to get there.
Hi, my name is Robert Tuttle from Bloomberg News.
I like the hat.
Thank you. The Premier of Alberta the other day said that within a matter of weeks she expects a proponent to emerge for a new bitumen pipeline running from here to northern BC to Prince Rupert. Do you know if that's the case, and how receptive are you to that idea?
So I think we all need to understand where we're at in this process. The One Canadian Economy Act passed in the House of Parliament 2 weeks ago. It passed the Senate this past week, so it became law this past week. As we talked about in Saskatoon, the private sector is going to need to advance these projects of national interest. One of the 5 key criteria is high probability of execution. That means private sector leadership and private sector capital. What we are doing now is starting the conversations with those private sector industry participants and relevant jurisdictions and Indigenous people about finding the projects that will meet the 5 criteria for national projects. We're very early on in that process. If a project comes forward, and one, I've not seen one yet, but if a project comes forward, it will be evaluated against those 5 criteria in conjunction with the relevant jurisdictions and in conjunction with Indigenous peoples.
If a project to build a pipeline into northern BC did emerge, would the government be open to lifting or creating some sort of exception to the tanker ban that was imposed that would stand in the way of that?
So I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals. I want to come back to what was agreed in Saskatoon. All of the Western premiers advanced the idea of the port-to-port-to-port infrastructure corridor. That corridor anticipates all types of infrastructure going through it. It anticipates port development, it anticipates rail development, it anticipates interprovincial transmission lines, it anticipates wind, it anticipates development of critical minerals. All of these things, in addition to pipelines, are relevant to retooling our economy and building our economy so we are Canada strong, so that we are prepared to win this trade war that has been imposed upon us. All of those types of projects, and all of them were discussed in varying degrees in Saskatoon. When they come forward, they will be evaluated against the criteria. Tell you that there's been lots of discussions with various folks around pathways. It's something that's being worked on actively. I don't think, in my previous life, I did a lot of deals. I never did a deal with the press. Those conversations are going on. They're going to happen in private. When there's a transaction, we'll let everybody know, but you should assume that everyone is focused on trying to figure out how to make that happen.
And just to follow up, there was a report in the Devoir today about a proposed new LNG project for Quebec. Just wondering what you know about that, and also whether a project like that could fall under a national interest project under C5.
So my understanding is they've had some conversations with Quebec. It's appropriate that they have the conversations with Quebec first. If Quebec wants to advance that project with the proponent, I'm sure they'll bring it forward, and it will be evaluated against the criteria, just like all the other projects we were discussing a moment ago.
All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Reed Southwick with the Financial Post. I'm just curious about what steps that you've taken so far sort of illustrate this changed relationship that you hope to have with the oil industry and how that's going.
It's my 3rd time in Alberta, 6 weeks. I think we've had dialogue with industry almost every day. I think we've had dialogue with First Nations almost every day. I think we have regular daily dialogue with the different provinces about building a Canada strong. I think we passed an act, the Building One Canadian Economy Act, to reset the tone in this country. I think those are all pretty tangible steps.
Okay, and just on this this idea that there could be a proponent to emerge for a pipeline to the northern BC coast, what kinds of timelines are you hoping for to realize? Like, if someone came to you today, like, what kinds of timelines are you looking at in terms of how quickly this will happen?
So, how quickly a proponent comes is up to the proponent. We don't. They need to step forward with a proposal. That proposal will be evaluated against against the 5 criteria, and if it is designated, which is under the Act, it is designated, there will be a conditions document with all of the conditions laid out for operation. That document will be clear and transparent. And the commitment of the federal government is it will do all of its work, all of its processes within a 2-year time period. So once a project is designated, the goal is to get stuff, everything dealt with from a federal government, environmental and Indigenous consultation perspective within 2 years.
Mike Sonington, CBC. In your view, how does the trade war affect sentiment by Canadians towards the United States this July 4th?
Look, America is a wonderful country. It's a great country. I think many Canadians have family and friends who live in the United States. Many Canadians have lived and worked in the United States. The United States has made its decision. That's their decision. What I see, and what I'd rather talk about, is what I see on Canada Day. I see a Canada that's come together like it's never come together in my lifetime. I can tell you, as someone who is new to politics, so I used to be like you guys out there until 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago. When I had the privilege of sitting in Saskatoon around the table, and to see the unanimity between the Prime Minister and the Premiers about their determination to make Canada strong, to do what it takes to retool our economies, to get ready for this new world we live in, I can tell you it was probably the proudest day I've ever had as a Canadian. And I'm sure you guys all felt that on Canada Day this year. So America will do what America does. As the Prime Minister has said, we're not going to worry about what other people do. We can give ourselves more than anyone else can take away from us. Let's focus on what we can do. And what you're seeing here today is what we can do.
So further to that, what is the latest on how talks towards a trade deal with the U.S. are progressing?
Well, those conversations are going on and being led by the Prime Minister and Minister LeBlanc. I'm here working on things like this, and so I'd suggest you ask that question to the Prime Minister and Minister LeBlanc.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right, I think we have made through all the questions in the room. So Margot, I will pass it over to you for folks on the line.
Thank you, Carolyn. Hello, bonjour tout le monde en ligne. To ask a question during this media availability, please raise the hand function in the reaction section. If you are connecting via a phone line, please press *9 on your phone's dial pad to raise your hand.
Do you want to take the next one?
All of this, the description of how to raise your hand is also found in the chat. Vous pouvez tout trouver dans le chat au sujet de comment poser une question. Si vous voulez poser une question, vous n'avez qu'à lever votre main. Carolyn, we have Alexander on the line for a question. And please, Alexander, share your name and affiliation before you pose your question. Go ahead, please.
Yes, it's Alex Ballingal with the Toronto Star. Can you guys hear me? Okay, no windy out there.
We can hear you on the line. Can you hear them?
I can't hear anything except you, Margot, but maybe I'll just toss my question out.
We can hear you.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Alex Ballingal with the Toronto Star. Minister, you mentioned the ongoing talks, the active discussions on pathways. You're not going to negotiate in public, obviously, or discuss this in public. But is the government considering putting more federal dollars towards this to make it happen on top of the existing tax credits that are on the table?
I'm not going to negotiate in public.
Okay. I would just kind of re-ask that, I guess, about the money. And supplementary to that, I guess, you mentioned on C5 creating this process, and then the other legislation and regulations that the industry and provinces like Alberta have issues with, deal with the other acts over time. Can you just explain exactly what you mean by that statement?
So what the government is committed to do is, first of all, negotiate with each of the provinces over the next 6 months a one project, one review process. That should simplify processes for all projects going forward. That's a good first start. But then, in addition to that, the objective is to take all of the learnings that the Major Projects Office is doing. And remember, the Major Projects Office will be overseeing all the projects. We'll be working closely with the Indigenous Advisory Group and the industry advisory groups to learn from those projects and feed that information back and into any amended bills that would result from this process.
Thank you. We will now move to Natasha Belowski. Natasha, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Natasha Belowski with Canada's National Observer. And just in a similar vein to Alex, I know that in June he actually reported that some officials were saying that your government might consider scrapping or changing the oil and gas emissions cap, particularly if the Pathways Alliance proposed carbon capture mega project goes forward. And so I was just wondering, not on the negotiating side, but is your government still considering this sort of a fair trade-off in terms of reducing oil and gas sector emissions in line with our climate commitments if the project materializes?
So what we've said over several times is we're not going to deal with hypotheticals. As projects come forward and we look at them, we will deal with we will deal with the individual projects as they come forward. What the Prime Minister has said is he's focused on what the required outcomes are, and we will figure out how to get there, meeting those required outcomes. One of the criteria is that we honor our commitments to a clean economy and to fighting climate change, and that will be one of the key ways that we evaluate any project going forward.
Thank you. Yeah, and so as a follow-up, big projects like this obviously take some time to build. So it's up to a final investment decision. And I'm just wondering, with 2030 coming up and federal climate commitments still standing, at what point can you sort of no longer rely on the potential reductions from a project like Pathways? I don't think this is necessarily a hypothetical because we do have to work within these timelines. So yeah,
So you were a little bit fuzzy, but I think I got the gist of your question. And what I can tell you is that the Minister de Bruzen is meeting, as we are speaking here today. She's meeting with her colleagues at all the 13 provinces and territories, their environmental ministers, and they are working hard for how do we deal with this trade war going forward? How do we make sure we can grow our economy, retool our economy to be ready to take on this trade war and to make sure Canadians have the high-paying jobs they expect? How can we do that and honor our commitments to a cleaner economy? It's doing things like we're doing here today, where we're taking carbon out of the system that are going to help us do that. And Minister de Bruzen and her colleagues in the 13 provinces and territories are working hard on that challenge right now in